I got half a dozen things that are key ways to think about freedom, understandings we should have. I'll call them foundations. First one is foundation. The first foundation would be freedom is not free. You know that. Somebody has to pay with blood for there to be freedom. Because the natural state of man is oppression. The natural state of affairs is greed. And so to be free, somebody's going to have to pay. Your spiritual freedom was paid with blood. Your liberty now that we experience politically and nationally was paid for with blood. Freedom isn't free. There's a cost, and somebody's got to pay in blood. That's a high price. Number two, freedom has its opponents. You wouldn't think so. You would think that everybody would want to be free because we are all wanting to be free. But there are some who believe that their freedom will be gained at the expense of your lack of freedom. So somebody wants you to not be free, and they think that will give them more freedom if you're not free. Truth is, just the opposite is true. If freedom isn't for everyone, it isn't freedom for anyone. We're not free as long as there are people who want you to be not free. So freedom has opponents. It has a high cost, and there are opponents to freedom. Number three, freedom is available for the taking, but it will probably involve a struggle. You know that, right? There's a struggle involved. Number four, keep this up, I'll be done in 5 minutes. Now, I don't think it's freedom unless it's shared. Freedom kept to yourself is just selfishness. See, your bondage ought to be my mission. I should want to make other people free. The line in the song, as he died to make men holy, you've changed those words to let us fight to make men free. The original writing was, let us live to make men free. But the point is, somebody else's lack of freedom ought to be your and my mission. We want to set people free. My freedom should be the way to your freedom, should be the gateway. My freedom should be your gateway to freedom. Number five, freedom comes with responsibilities. I think you should guard it. Because if you're not careful, somebody will take it. You know, if you've got a TV or a radio and you've paid attention to the news the last 3 or 4 months, your freedom is on the verge of being swallowed up, and it needs to be guarded. Number two, you should share it. People need to be free. Now, I'll grant you, there's some risk involved, because free people do crazy things. But that's the risk of freedom. We have to risk that the crazies are going to do what they do. And number three, on number five here, the third point, guard it, share it, don't abuse it. Know the difference between freedom and anarchy. When your freedom begins to oppress somebody else, then that's anarchy. Now it's not free anymore. So freedom can cross over into anarchy. People claiming that they're just being free. Well, no, you've got to have a little bit of common sense, and you know common sense isn't common. Somebody said that's a flower that doesn't grow in everybody's garden. And then this is a definition of freedom that I learned many, many years ago. I'm going to say it again. Freedom is not the right to do what I want. It's the power to do what I ought. That's true freedom. Number six, you're not free if you can't say no. You're not free if you can't say no. That'll be true of a personal vice or a habit or an addiction. You're not free if you can't say no. But true freedom across the board in any category gives somebody else the right and the freedom to say no. And so you have to risk suffering rejection. If it says no, well, then you're free. Free to go. You're free to move about the country. You're free to find another boyfriend, another girlfriend. If you're married, you're not free to go find another wife or husband. The Bible says you chose her. You chose him. Pam and I were talking on the way to church today. Imagine that. Talking to your wife on the way to church. It doesn't happen. I know that'll be foreign to you, yeah. About how people who are together for years aren't friends. They're just coexisting in the same house. I don't understand that. I don't get that. Pam and I are friends. We like to be around each other. Well, she likes to be around me, because who wouldn't? But not true. I mean, well, I'm getting in trouble here. It is true. But I like to be around her as much as she likes to be around me. A healthy relationship is based on freedom and joy and friendship and openness and being able to talk about anything. You're not free if you can't say no. Number 7, we're just about done. Freedom has rules. You might think at first that it doesn't, but it does. And even if they're unspoken, there are still rules. Again, remember that flower that does not grow in everyone's garden? Common sense. Freedom. For example, in a husband-wife relationship, if they are free, you're free to love each other, free to disagree with one another. Imagine that. Before Pam and I ever got married, and I've shared this before, let me share it again because it's so good. I said, you can disagree with me about anything, but you cannot be silent, pout, walk away, stop the conversation before it's finished. You are obligated to try to convince me, and I am obligated to try to convince you. And we have to stay in that conversation until one of us is convinced that the other one is correct. That's not to give someone the right for intimidation. It's that there must be a dialogue until somebody sees the error of their thinking. You must come into agreement. How can two walk together except they be agreed? A house divided against itself is crooked. That's not what it says. A house divided against itself leans to one side. No, a house divided against itself will not stand. So I said, you can disagree all you want. And if I have misunderstood you, you have to stay in the discussion until you convince me. And I'm going to stay in the discussion until I convince you. One or the other of us is going to come to an agreement with the other one. And that's how that has to be. Isn't that good? You're welcome. There's no extra charge for that. But you should put that to work. You don't call names. You don't make fun of somebody because of something they can't do anything about. But you have to be willing to articulate what you think ought to be discussed, especially about what the rules of freedom might be. I didn't really ever have to tell her, now that we're engaged to be married, you can't date other people. I didn't have to say that. Should I have? No. You know, those are unspoken, but why would they need to be articulated? But we have all of these items, the amendments and the Bill of Rights and all those things that we have articulated in our government on documents to specify our freedoms and how they don't infringe upon another's freedom. I referenced earlier this morning John chapter 8. Starting at about verse 30 and 31, Jesus had been talking, and many of the Jews believed him, believed what he said, believed on him, believed in him, however you would like to word that. And Jesus said to them, well, if you sin, then you're a slave of sin. But he said, a slave doesn't abide in the house forever. The Son does. So if the Son makes you free, you really are free indeed. So who can give you freedom? Only somebody who already has freedom can give you freedom. Jesus is totally free from sin. He's the only one that can make you free from sin. So freedom can be given by those who are free. We experience freedom. Let's share the freedom. Spiritual freedom, religious freedom, political freedom. That's why it has to be shared to be truly free. Because, in fact, the Son, Jesus, has made you and me free.